pinnacle of human perfection.
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful. Is it a Tuesday? It is a Tuesday. Okay.
It's Tuesday.
What is up, Michelle? How are you?
Hey, going old school, back to Tuesdays.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Good times.
So we took a birthday break, you guys. Of course.
Yeah.
Michelle had her birthday right after our last show, and I just had my birthday a few days ago, March the 30th. And I got a necklace. Here, let me go full screen. My daughter got me this necklace.
Yeah, this is really pretty.
Isn't that cool? It's like an Oregon necklace with like a wire around it and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Really nice.
So,
you can show the other thing? I really like the other one.
Oh, yeah. Show
the other one. It's very cool.
All right. You guys got to see this one. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it to focus, but
it's like a little world in there.
Really cool. Anyway, it's got the gold on it. I can see you reflected in
it. I've got the different camera angle.
Whoops.
We got to remember that.
Drop my speaker.
Trash in the place.
All right. Tearing up my desk.
All right.
All right.
Where do we even start?
Well, right after our last show, before your birthday, we got to do a BQH session. And
again this year.
Yeah, because this is a good time of the year. Energies pick up. Yeah.
Yeah, it really helps me set the stage for the information like I'm about to learn and the energies I'm about to experience.
Yeah.
And it really kind of unfolds from there.
Well, you want to do a little summary of just however much you want to share about the BQH that you feel?
Well, so it was really interesting. We, first started off, we went through the story of sort of a different life form experience in a different world and what that would be like. And what it taught me was a very cohesive approach to the now moment. And it was actually biological for them. Their adaptability to flow was like a chameleon can change its colors. So it's really interesting in BQH, because it can take you into this different perception, just like a dream, and really sort of perceive and experience reality from a completely different point of perspective. So that kind of set a stage for the next part of the BQH, which was really information about our current setup of society and our a need to consume.
Yeah, right.
And consumption, and how the nature of consumption is changing in its dynamic currently. It's part of, we'll say, sort of the New World agenda or whatever, is them recognizing the change in consumption and switching their model of control and economy, or farming. We'll say farming is a good word. Farming of their cattle, right? Which is the general public, and the switching over of to content as opposed to food and material things, right? And that previously our the farming of us, the whole system of um you letting you out to work 9 to 5, um the whole, your birth certificate and your bonding and your straw man, and um how you kind of farm you in the system, right? And well, you're gonna go to college, you're gonna spend this kind of money, you're gonna buy a home, and you're gonna consume. And that's how they milk us, right? By the
Right.
consumption of food and products. Okay. And but what's happening now is our consumption is projected to turn to content. So it's even more illusory. It's like further down the rabbit hole, right? It's even less real. They're not even material things in your hands anymore. And this is why the whole landscape is changing as far as the model for people working. They don't care if you work from home. Like it's like they're acting like they do, like they're bothered by the system changing, but they they're not. um because it's about the consumption of content. And that's why it's all going digital, and that's why it's all going Wi-Fi and literally into the biometrics of your system. Um and why they don't even care, even the argument against TikTok right now, it's not that they don't want you consuming the TikTok, or consuming. They want control of the content. Obviously, they want to keep control of the narrative and the content to a certain extent, but they also, the idea of them playing both sides isn't even just to play us against each other and to add more diversity. It serves multiple purposes. The idea is that it doesn't really matter what content you're consuming, as long as you're consuming. And there is healthy content and there's junk content. So they are flooding the system with a lot more junk content, just like junk food, just like they did with, McDonald's and Taco Bell and like every street corner, and
Fast
the
food.
convenience of food or fast
Like the
food. And
fast
there's no
apps, right?
right, right. And, so as long as we're eating that up, like, and recognize, like, everybody in their phone and the consumption of this content, you can see the dynamic change. And so that's why they don't care if we have real food, like we have food or stuff anymore,
And
and
how much can be told about us by the content we're consuming, right? With the AIs
well,
and
right.
stuff, and they know
Well, they can
exactly what to deliver up to get our attention, you know?
well, the algorithms milk you emotionally, right? So, and that's the key to controlling your thoughts and behavior, is if they can latch onto your emotions. So as long as they can manipulate your emotions, then they can manipulate your mind, right? So I mean it serves, switching to content consumption over material and, real consumption. It serves multiple purposes for them. Like, it really streamlines their farming system, and they can manage it and monitor it. And, just like they do with everything that they farm, they're switching to Monsanto seeds, and, like, you can only use these seeds, and you can only um and that's obviously, the whole digital ID and the whole, like, it gives them a whole structure. And if you can get addicted to the consumption of the content just as much as you were addicted to the consumption of the food and goods, um, it it moves you over into this other system. Now, it's not to say that we can't get good consumption from the information that's out there, but what we need to do is be much more aware of actually when our emotions are being used against us, right? And recognizing that if we're having, like, need or lack or fear or whatever placed within us, that you're getting triggered responses, we have to be much more emotionally responsible, because it leads to this wrong thinking, which we'll get into more.
Right,
It's
but that does
yeah.
kind of tie into which you'll talk about, but getting into like where you're really observing your thoughts and you're becoming the observer of your thoughts that's crossing through your mind, and then you
and your
can
emotions.
realize
Hmm.
like like where that thought arises, and you can see where the manipulation can be used against you through ads and different things like that. You know, you're just more
Well, yeah,
aware of your thinking
it
pattern.
herds you just like a cattle dog herds sheep, right? They run around, they'll screw around that, so they nip the heels, and so we'll scare you over here, and we'll get you emotional over here, and then we get reactionary. We're not thinking, and you're just, behaving out of illusion. Then at that point, which is really what, like, that's what we're seeing right now. That this it's getting like hyper chaotic and physical. People getting physically violent in these process, and yeah. But
And
it serves a purpose.
yeah,
The chaos serves a purpose. So
right. Is it leading us back to love? And can love be the answer to all of
it
this? That's
leads
the
you to the
big
question of there's got to be a better way.
right.
Which was my, and again, this all comes full circle. All comes in this real comprehension of all this information I've received these last 6 weeks. It brings me full circle to my revelation of, my life just going so wrong, and trying all these avenues or pillars to like fix it. Is it the career? Is it your physical health? Is it your relationships? Is it, and trying to make all these things stand to build this, harmonious, and I never could, because it's life isn't about this. We're spiritual being, and that's the only truth. It's the only thing that's really actually relevant.
Right. Love,
And
basically, is really the only truth in this fiction. It's like we spend our life searching out the truth in this fiction, but there is only one truth, and that's love, right?
well, the truth for me then was that we're spiritual being, like having a spiritual experience, and that I should begin to approach my life that way. That is the epitome of the truth of the purpose of being here. It's not for all these other things. That's just playing pretend. That's just like playing the game. That is to make the focus on a daily basis of the spiritual perspective, like that's the priority, with the spiritual harmony or finding myself spiritually, because none of those things will ever work until that does,
Hmm.
right? So I think everybody has, unfortunately, I had to suffer a great deal and have a lot of these things, that I worked so hard to be perfect and not be perfect, and mess things up so much more, cause myself so much pain, um to get to the point of like, I give up, like I cracked, right?
Right. It is
So
sort of that letting go and realizing, though, that what you were searching for was flimsy at best. You know what I mean? It wasn't, it was just more
yeah.
of the illusion that you wanted to paint this picture a certain way. You know what I mean? But it's in the
That was the thing.
illusion.
But that's the real thing, is that, for me, what happened years ago was, I did enter psychosis, and basically I felt like I had an intervention when my mind was scrambled, because all my thoughts and my projection thoughts and all the stories and everything were causing such poor choices and behavior. And it's like something intervened and just cracked my mind and smashed all my thoughts everywhere. So I had to return to like ground zero. And in this I was disassociated in a way that put me in this like highly observer mode. So an old thought or pattern would come up, and I would be like, well, what is that thing? Like, well, that's interesting. Why did I say that? Right? Where
Hmm.
did that come from? And it's being like, and that's been my process over, slowly piecing my thoughts back together in my brain to figure out what was actually really true. What was really true in all of that.
Well,
And,
let's talk about your dreams, because I think that kind of gets at the
mm,
heart of this whole thing, and I think it sets the stage and gives us sort of a model to talk about and use as an
yeah.
example.
So as I expected, I have had some very powerful experiences and dreams over the last few weeks, and every year I do at this time. They're far above and beyond any normal kind of experience. Um, so I was expecting this. Sorry.
It's all good.
All right. So the dream had two segments, kind of back to back, two situations. And it jumped like from one to the other. So I'll start with the first. And I was walking in like a shopping mall, sort of, not a lot of detail, but that was like like an atrium in a shopping mall on the second floor, mezzanine. I come across, I'm approaching a group of young people, and they're arguing, and they are black, and
Ladies too, right?
ladies,
Yeah.
young ladies, um teens, no more than early 20s, and they're scrapping, and the hair pulling, that really erratic um fighting. And one girl in particular is just really lashing out at everybody, and she's like, the slurs, and I don't remember the actual words or anything. They're hurling the insults and trying to really instigate with people and really elevating the situation. She's really lashing out at everybody. And she was fighting with one girl, sort of to begin with, that was the same size of her, but in her lashing out and in her reactionary behavior, she lashes out at the greater group, including this one woman who is big and mean and like the size of a man, and the kind of person who, like, very quiet, very stoic, um doesn't get, like, wouldn't get ear, but if you push that button, she'll just sweep the floor with you, you can tell. And I got this sort of, premonition or feeling like that she was going to be instigated or drawn into this whole thing and actually really hurt some people. Like, she could really hurt some people. And this girl who was insulting her and everything didn't know the kind of trouble that she was about to get herself into. So what's interesting about this dream and walking into it is I had an awareness of what was going on, and I'm watching it and taking it in, this information, but I also had no conscious thought so much. This is really different. I had no decision about what I was going to do in this situation, right? Um, and it was like I was called to walk into it in a situation I had no business entering, right? And I'm walking into it, and I am sort of thinking, I walk up to this very large woman who's angry, and she sees me approaching her, and she's like looking at me like, who's this crazy white lady? Right? Like, what's she doing? Right? And I just kept approaching her, and I experienced this moment of like, wow, like, what are you doing? Like, she could really hurt you, she can mess you up. Like, do you even know what you're doing here? And I didn't, but I just kept walking forward. And then all of a sudden, I just started loving her. And my face, it was like I knew my face changed. Like, I was loving her with my face. I was loving her with my whole energy. I was just like beaming love at her. And I just kept walking towards her, and she's like, what is she doing? Right? She's not sure what to do now. And she backs up and she backs up, and I just keep steady with her. And she backs to the wall, right to the wall. And I just kept walking towards her just with this love. And I walked right up to her, and I just so gently, leaned into her, and I just hugged her and began sharing this amazing experience of awareness of my true self and the purity of that, and its pure form, the invulnerability and strength of it. So by the time, I'll say before I even got to hugging her, this, any residual fear or whatever, like when I hit this love and then it really bloomed, I was completely strong. There was no insecurity. There was no fear. So I felt completely strong. Um, when I held her, I experienced Christ's words of, they know not what they do. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. I experienced that on such a deep, profound level of knowing within myself as truth and what that truth really means. Um, so I'm holding her and I'm experiencing this union, and somehow I know that she's feeling this. She's feeling all this information. She's feeling this love. She's feeling the truth of this connection. She's feeling what I am experiencing as her own truth as well. And she wraps her arms around me and she's hugging me too. And I hear, as we're hugging, I hear people beside us start praising Jesus, and proclaiming it's a miracle. It's a miracle. And I step back from her, I look at her, I'm just flowing in grace. And I look at her and I say, yes, it is a miracle. And it is a miracle from Christ. And feeling this like gratitude of this miracle and the understanding of it. I understood atonement as knowing. I understood that when we hit atonement, it pipelines. This is kind of one of Christ's gifts for us, this way he's inserted himself to be able to give us this ladder. It propels us into revelation and experiencing the truth of God as whole, and your oneness with that, like the whole, you're like, bye, right? It's like a pipeline to it. But we have to understand, we have to hit this concept of forgiveness and in a knowing way. This revelation of atonement. And this experience of love as a knowing of truth that exists within you, that exists within me, and that makes us one, right? All else is an illusion.
So in that moment, you like it all made sense in that very moment, the
Yeah.
oneness of everything. So then,
Yes.
like just a moment later,
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah. So
in
so
part
like
two of
we
the dream.
and this glorious, like everybody's celebrating, like the gratitudes, like our worship, like we just witnessed a miracle. And I felt that everybody in the crowd like actually experienced this energy, like experiences it, even though there was no observable thing. I just went up and hugged this woman. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cut scene. Boom. I'm walking down a country road, right? And it's kind of sort of semi-night, early evening. It's kind of dark, so a little hard to see. And I'm approaching this sort of long gravel driveway because there are some houses there, but it's sort of more rural housing. And this, as I'm walking past this driveway, this burgundy station wagon, older burgundy station wagon, comes and turns in. The driver is not even looking to see. She's just almost like, like somebody who was talking on a phone. They're not even, she just turned in, doing her own thing. And she hits me, the back end of the car, like the window, and it hits my arm, and it hits me, and it hurts me, and knocks me over. And I immediately go into this rage. I'm swearing and what the is the matter with you? You're not even looking. What are you thinking? You're not even paying attention what you do. You hit me with your car. And I'm like, you fuck that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa. I just stop. I'm like, because I remember the revelation. I remember I'm realizing, and like part of me, this is kind of the weird thing in dreams now, is having three levels of consciousness at the same time. I'll have a dream level consciousness running, I have a waking consciousness running, and then have a higher consciousness running. And they're all sort of communicating at the same time. And so all of a sudden, my higher consciousness and my waking consciousness is perceiving that, hold on a second, you just had this dream
Miracle.
with this amazing love experience, and here you are, like, screaming at this woman, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And I just stopped, and I, like, perceived the truth of it, right? And she had gone out of the car, and it was like the driver's side was on the opposite side, like in England or whatever. And she got out of the car, and she was kind of sitting on the curb, and I could see that she was suffering. Like, she's like, oh my, like, the obviously whatever, you so chaos in her life, and she's not paying attention. Now she's caused more damage, and it's like, oh my God, like, how am I going to deal with this? And she had started lashing out with me a bit too, like, because I'm attack her, and then she's like, back, and so I just stop, and all of a sudden I crouch down on my knees before her, and I say, listen, I'm so sorry. Um, I was just responding in pain for a moment there, but that's not the truth of who I am. Please know that I understand you. I have been lost too. I have forgotten, and I have hurt myself, and I have hurt others when I've been in that place. And I've had all these burdens, I think, because she had this, like, a station wagon, because I said, I've been a single mom with three kids. Like, I know the overload, and I know that you didn't mean to cause harm. And and we had this just amazing, again, this whole atonement, this, forgiveness of, like, I understand that I was in a nightmare, and in doing so, I lashed out. I hurt myself. I hurt other people, but that's not who I truly am. And then it allows this, like, love to come out of you, um, and the compassion, and the brotherhood, and yeah. So there we go.
Beautiful. So you have these two different dreams to really show you the whole contrast in the whole thing, but show you actually how pulling yourself out in those moments, which, that's been the long journey for me, right?
Well,
And even
yeah,
not replaying things over and over in your head, and things like that too.
this is the real work now, Shane.
Yeah.
And I think it really, these two dreams, like, every bit of information is in these dreams at every single point, has come full circle, like, in a revelation, and over these last few weeks,
Yeah.
in this greater understanding of, like, what that all meant and what it means to me, and for the work that's going on right now energetically as well. And I have noticed, myself, like, even though you have these amazing dreams and this experience, and bring it into your knowing, it's like, I've still, like, found myself lashing out. Like, I was like, whoa, whoa, what was that? What
Right.
was that? Calm down. Like, calm down. And really, 24, hours a day, just much more body presence. I will add to the dreams as well, that I did mention this last time that we talked, this increase in levitation going on in the dreams, and more consistent, like, long running, just, like, levitating around reality for such extended periods of time, that it's like, I guess this is just normal now. And this call to really remember that in my waking state, of what it feels like to be in my body that way, and move through reality that way, even though I'm not actually levitating. There's a presence of mind that's in place, like, within yourself, and your, like, composure, and your presence, and the pace at which you move, and not getting too ahead of yourself. You're just, and there's been a real call to be present within the body, to remember that, and to be present, in the mind with the thoughts, to be present with the emotions, recognize where they might be getting triggered from, and, like, to have to be on it, all the time. But in the same sense, in a forgiving way to myself, like in a different way that I've done before, so that when I mess up, I'm not messing up. Like to stop telling myself that I made a mistake,
Mhm.
or that I failed in some way, or that I'm lacking in some way. Um,
Well, we've
that I'm
had
already whole.
we've had instances because we've talked about that before, like helping us forgive ourselves about different things and how we've forgiven people for certain things and the feeling you have when you can just let something go for someone like that and the ability of us to forgive as mere humans, let alone like some kind of divine forgiveness that we feel like maybe we're unworthy to be forgiven by some higher power, right? But
Right,
but if we can forgive as mere humans, of course our divine higher self can forgive because it's beyond the
right,
illusion, you know?
right. Well, and that's it. As I've gone through this process, I've sort of narrowed down my questions to like the epitome question at certain points. And I feel like I can't move forward in my process until I have the answer to this, right? And last year it was, what is truth? Well, what is truth really? Right? And I came to the understanding through downloads that there is no truth. There's only love. That is the truth, right? And this is this divine knowing. It's a state of full love. Once you remove all separation, it's it's all one thing. So um the next question was in regards to free will. And my understanding from that was our free will is not a free will of action, it's a free will of perception. We have the choice to perceive because actions flow from our beliefs and our perceptions. We form our beliefs based on our perceptions, and when those align, we follow through with action, right? So, what comes first? So, obviously, the choice is your free will to perceive. And this isn't it, this, leads down the road to then the next it ties in with the next question, which you don't realize at the time, which is, um, how can I forgive myself until I know that God has forgiven me? Right. Um, And when you hit the knowledge, you realize that these are all the same thing. They're all the same answers. Always comes to the same thing. And so my big question, I think, going into these last few weeks was about forgiveness and the experience of forgiveness. And then I have this miracle of this dream, which gives me the understanding that and deep knowing within myself that as from God's standpoint, there's nothing to forgive because the illusion doesn't exist. And the only real truth is my perfection because his being perfect, he only creates perfection. Like, truth is truth. There's no buts.
Hmm.
Yeah, but, yeah, but,
The land of the
right?
never-ending story. It's all like
Yeah.
stories to help us remember love, the truth of it all, or something.
Yes. Well, every story is,
It's like we're
yeah,
going to
of
an
the hero's
amusement
journey.
park. It's like an adventure, like I always say. But we got to figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Adventure into separation. Well, it all again leads kind of back full circle to what we started talking about in the first place about consumption, because what I got into as well in this understanding of our completeness and perfection in spirit, right? Maybe not in definitely not in ego, that's the point, but um perfection of spirit, like as far as the from the Garden of Eden, right? If you look at the Garden of Eden, um we existed in a state of no need, right? We had no need to consume. Like we had everything you needed. That was the point, the archetype of the God of Eden. No suffering, no pain, no lack, right? But the serpent convinced them that you're missing something. There's something you don't know, or there's something you should try this because you don't know, like somehow, trick them into consuming the apple. So understanding the action of consumption itself is under the premise that you are missing something, so you need to put something in because there's something you don't have. So it's like, boom, separate like that. So that's the original sin, is to think that you were ever lacking in the first place, that you were ever missing or unworthy or like that's where it all that's where the separation began, right?
Yeah.
Because you are whole. But it's just a trick to think and go in this play of reality to play out that you're not.
Right.
Right.
But that's the
Only
game, you
only to
know?
bring
It's
you
not
back to the revelation that
right.
you are.
Right.
Right. Sorry. Go
But
ahead.
that's like kind of cool because I was telling you how I got this view of like if you imagine like a Candyland board with this trail going around and it leads all the way back around to the starting point, and it's like you need not go all the way through all of the stories. You only need to take a step back. You know, it's just like thought of this idea of non-duality or an idea of no concept at all. It's because you can kind of chop the tree off at the trunk by
Mm-hmm.
realizing that there never was anything lacking to begin with. You know, and it's like
Right.
everything else, all the other questions change. And it's like you reach this level where, like, all the questions that, 99% of us have about things all just kind of crumble away. It's like, well, that's kind of irrelevant
Right.
now. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's just like the Wizard of Oz too. I mean, there's the other archetype story, that she had the ruby slippers the whole time. She never need to go run down the road. The lion had courage. It was like them thinking because they didn't have that thing. Well, because I don't have
Yeah.
the heart, that
Yeah.
I don't have heart. No, you were born that's your God-given, who you
I remember thinking that
are.
as a kid too. Do you? Like, wait, why aren't they talking? If he doesn't have a brain, if he doesn't have a heart, how are they?
Yeah. Doesn't he realize?
Right.
How would you be able to talk? Obviously, you've got courage. Obviously, you've got brains, right? And yeah, and it's a perfect one when you give someone like the diploma with all the fancy words that mean nothing.
Right. But then
And
we
there's
realize
lots,
it's like,
lots of
oh, okay,
smart
we're
people.
pretending. We're pretending
We're
here. Okay, we're
pretending.
pretending he doesn't have a heart.
Yeah, I'll give you a medal, right?
Right.
You get some medal and a diploma. They don't mean anything.
So all of that
Yeah.
led to some really cool synchronicities with a
Mm.
certain book. So tell us how that all played out.
Well, yeah, so within like a week, like I had this dream, which real experience, and then I get the inspiration. So I'll just say quickly, what also has been happening is that when certain ideas are coming in, and the idea to pick up this book was one of them, a very strong pressure. It almost feels like someone's really touching my forehead like this, with a thumb here and the fingers right there. And I actually feel this. I feel it. And then my mind clears. And then I'll get the prompt, right? And the prompt was to just go pick up this book. Go pick it up and read it. And I was in the middle of doing something else. So it wasn't just like, what should I do? Middle of doing something else. So I stopped what I was doing, turned it off, and went and picked up the book and started reading it. And everything I read explained everything that happened to me in that dream and what I was really experiencing about forgiveness, about atonement, like what it all means. And this book is written from the perspective of Christ, right? So I've just been going through that. And so now it's like every day I read a little bit every day and just take it in, because streaming in the downloads. I was like, I get
This
it,
is A
because I
Course
have
in Miracles. Is this
A
like the
Course in
workbook or is
Miracles.
it which one is it? Isn't
This
there?
is Mom had this, luckily. It wasn't even mine. She had it on the shelf, and A Course in Miracles combined volume. So I'm really lucky. It's got a
Got it all in
workbook
there,
for
huh?
students, a manual for teachers, clarification of terms, supplements, preface. Yeah, so it's got like a workbook I can do, right? Where you just do one thing. It's 365 days, 365 lessons, and you just do like one a day. And it's just like a little contemplation exercise or whatever so far, and I'll read, I've been highlighting highlighting everything, right, as I go through. And um But like right away from the first thing I was reading, it got into the whole explanation of like what I experienced in that dream in this state of forgiveness and what that really means. Like what was going on,
Right.
you know?
You had an interesting quote about truth in there as well. You have that where you can read it? Did you pull that one aside?
Yeah, we tried to go over this beforehand, guys, and put some notes in. Well, which one about we so I put the lion and the lamb, I put a little note
Okay,
in
let's do
that
the lion
one.
and the lamb one because this is really
Well,
cool
yeah, I
because
think this
we
is a
all
good one to
love.
talk about. So, because I'll bring up the part in the dream where initially when I was approaching her, and I was like this could go really wrong. Like she could hurt me, right? But then when I hit this state, this full-bodied state, the strength that I perceived, it was all powerful. There was no that, and that's when I understood to turn the other cheek, and they know not what they do. Like you could take it all away, take it away, take you, doesn't matter, there's nothing for me to lose, so your strength. So yeah, the one thing I liked here was it says, I being correctly, so this is from Christ's perspective, supposedly. I have been correctly referred to as the Lamb of God who taketh away the sins of the world. But those who represent the Lamb as blood-stained do not understand the meaning of the symbol. Correctly understood, it is a very simple symbol that speaks of my innocence. The lion and the lamb lying down together symbolize it that strength and innocence are not in conflict, but naturally live in peace. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So, before these were just words to me, right? You just try to figure out like what that means, lying lay down with the game. We have different theories, we have different perspectives on what that could mean,
Mhm.
but experiencing it as a knowing state of existence is a totally different thing. And that's kind of the amazing thing. It's like by going through this, by having these experiences and dreams of these different states. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, it's all good.
The knowing has less words.
Right.
Yeah, and it's much more abstract, and it even talks about that here too. The fact that your thoughts become much more sort of abstract as your observation gets broader,
Right.
because it's not all about you anymore and your story.
Right.
um what else did I write, Shane?
Can you tell the analogy about Jesus and his brother? I think that was helpful and kind of went along with the whole.
Yeah, I really like this one. I had a really beautiful vision of sort of how would you explain this to other people so it would encourage them to have this more of this perspective, right? Right-minded perspective in viewing another person, and how we can see to this compassion and forgiveness, right? Um, so I had a picture of, if Jesus came to you and he brought you a man and he said to you, this man is my brother, and he is like as perfect and as full of grace as I am, so is he, right? Any love that you shower on this man, my brother, I will feel from you, and I will know of your compassion and your love, and I will experience it too, right? As much as you love him, you love me. And the only problem is that he's asleep, and he's having a nightmare right now. And she thinks this whole scenario is like going on. And so he may lash out at you because he thinks these things. He thinks, that you're this character in this dream, and that, you might be trying to control him, or whatever it is. And any like responses that he has is like a sleepwalking man. He's sleepwalking. So how would you treat this person? And also coming from this perspective of knowing that you were asleep too, knowing that when you were asleep and you were in the nightmare, that you hurt yourself and you hurt other people as well, right? How would you have wanted to be cared for with compassion and understanding to gently help you awaken, right? Not to jar you awake and shake you and jolt you and say, wake up. If you don't wake up, then I'm never going to get out of here. It's not.
Right.
And to really contemplate how you would treat that person, to really start to try to think about it from that way. Because we say these words a lot, we've been learning this, like, yeah, we're all like beings of light and my spirit's pure love, yay. And then we go out there and point fingers and place blame and I don't like this and create more stories and are we forgiving people? Are we forgiving ourselves? Are like we doing the real important work of that, right? Or because you have to really go deeply within yourself and you have to forgive yourself and from this point, from this knowing, because that's the only way to do it. Otherwise there's always a story. And you have to do the same thing with other people. If you don't take it down to this base element of truth, then you're always going to make a story about it and go off into the delusion. So,
And I like that
we're
because
always,
it ties in
sorry.
the thing with Jesus's brother anyway. It kind of ties in with the whole idea of being in the life review moment at any time. And it's like kind of having
Yeah.
that perspective. But that's a whole nother way of looking at it. It's another useful tool, I think. Jesus brother tool. I like
Yeah.
it.
Well, when we look at perception, right? And I think I might have mentioned this on the last show as well. And when we're feeling resistance in our experience and how we're perceiving our experience, and we feel resistance about that, the old way of doing things is go to try to like physically change the experience itself and control it, control other people, control what's going on, right? All of those things. But what we need to do now is soften the perspective, right? And even if you can start making these gentle shifts in thinking, and the simplest tool to do so is what would love say from what's the more loving perspective, right? And it's not that we can always just go boom right to like, yeah, benevolent and forgiveness, right? But even if you can start to just gently shift that perspective a little bit and make it a little bit more loving and a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more compassionate and a little bit more full of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Trying to find those things that we can love in that moment or we can be grateful for in that moment,
Mhm.
simple things, and it just starts switching that over, right? And if something is really abhorrent to us, who's really telling us that we have to keep doing it? If you really don't want to do something and you really don't like it, the only person that can make you is you. So, sometimes we have to ask ourselves that too. So I know it's really hard right now because there's so many real demands on us, you know,
Yeah.
monetarily and responsibility wise. I was just, but it is amazing how many things you can release the need of in your life if you start changing this perspective. Because it does release naturally the need to consume, and then you begin to even question why you had a need to consume in the first place. Like I even understand fasting from a completely different perspective now, like the meaning behind fasting, whatever benefits it may have on the body or blah blah blah. It's a state of mind. It's overcoming the mind's need to like fill itself. We need something, and it's remembering our original state of grace, which is not having a need to consume and that you're a whole. So it's as a practice, it's a sort of a way to practice a state of non-consumption. right? Which
Mm.
again goes back to that original garden. This is
Right.
why, like, I feel like, and I was saying before we came on, it's like once you kind of get to this level, everything uh, brings it back to the same place. So forgive me, guys, if I jump over here and then I'm over here because
It
it's
really
all
is all
connected
connected. Yeah.
in my mind. So it gets harder and harder to explain one thing without referencing another because they all have to do with the same thing. And so I'm sorry if I repeat myself, and because there's less words, so there's less to say, so you just say the same thing over and over.
And
So
it's hard to put things into words, like you said, it does
yep,
really come down to a knowing. And it actually
yep.
it's liberating because like it's not really dependent on you. You might say something, unconsciously that really helps someone, but it's going to be
Yeah.
like more automatic. It's just going to come through. And then like we worry ourselves feeling like if I don't save them, no one will, but it's really not like that at all. You know what I mean? It's
No,
like
like,
there's so
yeah.
much we have to work on with just ourselves in our daily lives, like you're talking about, and learning to be more loving in every interaction because we can all get triggered at times, Even our
Yeah.
diet affects it. We're so finicky when it comes to our mood and stuff like that. I mean, just not eating, I can get grouchy, you know what I mean? Or certain
Yeah.
foods, or sometimes you don't even know why, you know what I mean? And then it's like an extra chore to be loving in those moments, right? To be more
Well,
patient and
I think
stuff
that's
like
the
that.
next
So.
thing I'm going to be exploring more as far as my questions go is sort of this increased irritability. Like it brings it up, and it's brought it up a couple times of how actually when you get closer to this level of knowledge that things actually do become more intolerable, like, and that itself is a normal thing. And also really sort of having to bring myself back all the time too. um there's nothing for me to learn that's going to make me more worthy. There's nothing for me to teach that's going to make me more worthy. There's no action that's going to make me more worthy than I already am. That's false thinking, right? Again, so it's like, it's not just how you approach others, it's really like how you approach yourself. Like you're right. There's no thing that I am going to say, like, it's there's no responsibility on me to be of value. I am already. There is nothing for me to prove. Once I have this knowing, that's that's all I need to do. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to learn anything. I don't have to be anything. I don't have to try anything, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I can if I want to for the joy, whatever, but I don't have to because I'm already whole. My spirit, right? And
Yeah.
anything else is just shadows dancing around, playing out stories and whatever.
It really is like we were talking, I think, I don't know, when we talked a few weeks ago, I was talking
Mhm.
about the whole idea of I am. And typically, instead of really getting back to that first initial thought, that flame, that spark of life within us that says I am, and then we begin to attach things to
Boom.
that, right?
Yeah. Like I
We
am. Like boom. Here I
Right,
am,
and
baby.
that's it, right, but then we begin, I am son, I am brother, I am, whatever your
Yeah.
profession is,
I
and we
am
tech
different.
and then we even get to the point where we're like, I am meditating. I am a meditator, right? But it's really
Yeah.
meditating
I
in its
am learning
truest
to
sense
meditate.
is getting back to just I amness,
That's
not
right.
putting the tag on there. It's really just getting back to that initial thought before all of the stories and baggage and things about our personality that we think are us. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, and the what ifs and the buts and the maybes and the but I mean it's all okay. Like there's not even any judgment on that anymore. Like it's not I wasn't there's no it wasn't doing anything wrong by doing those things either. And there's also, what this book explains too is there's no measurement, from on the other side of knowing, from the God perspective, is there's no measurement on the amount of delusion that you had. That one having more delusion or what being lost for longer or further or farther
or
or
what type of
whatever,
delusion, what game
or
we're
what
playing.
type of delusion
Yeah.
or there's no comparison, there's no measurement, there's because it's all false. because it's all not real. So a little not real, a little bit of zero, and a lot of zero still equals zero.
Now think about all the things they use to cause division over us right now in the world, and it's all like based on something that's not real even to begin with. You know,
Yeah.
the human vessel.
Your identity.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a double down on the identity, because it really is this really is
Or
we
that
have to
something's wrong with
recognize the
you.
ego as a false idol. The
Right.
ego is a false idol. That's the false idol that you're praying to, that you're making an altar to. And that's where it's all gone wrong, is people made an idol of their false ego and have been sacrificing to that, have been praying to it, have been trying to work magic, which, for its intention, for what it wants, as opposed to clearing all that away and restoring God as on our altar, right? Which is pureness, purity. And then, yeah. Anyways.
We got a bunch of birthday wishes I didn't get to tell you about,
Oh,
but I
thank
did put them on
you.
the screen. So thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Yeah, a little older, a little wiser. Yeah. But it's been an absolutely amazing experience, a real revelation. I feel understanding on a whole other level of what this process is about, like energetically, like what needs to happen. We've talked over the years, like, is it, what's going to happen? Is it a solar event? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Is it going to be a combination of things? What's the exit, and how's that going to happen? And I understand the experience of it, and it's the atonement. And it's this recognition of oneself and the forgiveness and the recognition of the other and the forgiveness, this experience of oneness, which leads to revelation. And until we can stop dividing, and I do see like there's an implosion of it. Like I do see how people will come into this on the earth, like I've thought for years, like what would it be like if you had like 144,000 Jesuses walking around? What would happen to the world? Not just one Jesus, but like thousands of them. Walking, inspiring, teaching, walking in grace just by their being, sharing, like not even with words, like not even just sharing like what I experienced, the miracle. The miracle is forgiveness. That's the miracle. You want to perform a miracle today? Forgive somebody and forgive yourself. Bam, did it. Amazing. Like really deeply on this level of understanding of truth.
And we have a
You
lot
and
of
I are
boss
one.
level choices to pick from too.
Yeah.
To learn our love with, right? We have a lot of
Yeah.
people on the whole stage. You could pick one, like, how can I figure out how to love this person, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think some good analogies are like, the dream one we talked about. I had a friend share with me a dream they had of being at a party, or was playing party game, and in the game everybody's given a color coded card, and they play a specific role, mother father relationship, or friend, or enemy or adversary, and that causes friction, and so we all play these different roles for each other, but you have to play it drunk. Right. Yeah. And it's just a kind of another great analogy. The humor in it helps too. Like we really got to find the humor, and so it's sort of the seriousness, how serious everybody can be, is very silly when you come from the other side perspective. And so the humor helps. Also another thing, to understand that our spirits come in to like play these roles too, and play them out, and they're actually maybe not done for your detriment. So maybe let's say you and I, as brother and sister on the other side, like we feel that we are, and on the other side, I came to you and I said, listen, Shane, I can really accelerate in my spiritual process, in elevating myself, closer to the experience of God. if you will come into this reality with me and stab me in the back. Would you love me enough to do that? I
Absolutely.
know you don't, I know you don't want to, but would you do that for me? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
As
do
long as I
that
don't have
for
to go to
you.
prison for too long.
Well, it's
It could
all
be
an
like a
illusion
stab at you,
anyways.
right?
It'd be like,
I'm
it'd
just
be like if
playing.
I said to you, it'd be like if I said to you right now, hey Shane, will you come into my dream tonight? I'm gonna have a dream tonight. And will you come in there and will you play a monster? So I can play out the scenario and I can have a revelation from it, and it'll really help my experience along, and sort of, even though it looks like it's taking you back, it's really contradictory. I wouldn't be surprised at a lot of people you may, maybe perceiving as being behind the ball right now or behind the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they slingshot ahead
Well,
of
it
a
all
whole group
leads
of
back
people.
to that, though. It's like once you realize, it's like you get to this point where you're like, wait, we're not missing anything. It's like, oh, I guess I'll just go and start living life like everybody else. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least in a more loving way, right? I mean, there's that saying
Yeah.
about enlightenment, right? It's before enlightenment.
Yeah.
I,
Chop wood, carry water.
yeah, after enlightenment, chop
Yeah.
wood and carry
And I
water. So
like,
it doesn't
well,
really change
yeah.
anything, right? I mean, what is
No,
enlightenment?
but
That's even a
it's the
concept.
peace.
Yeah.
It's the peace in your own mind, in your own head, and your own experience and story, what's going on, Like I hear like we literally we chop wood for the trees. And I can tell you, the amount of peace I felt from just being able to simply do the job of providing myself with heat for the winter. And not all, like, it's just simple work. Chop wood, carry water, which is water, drink, keep warm. Like, I think even that saying itself is even more about the simplicity of how we should approach things. Like, don't carry more than you need to. We need water, we need chop wood, but the simple things. It doesn't say carry a TV and an iPhone and an SUV and a house with
Right.
3-car garage. How much stuff do we need? What are we trying to prove?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're thinning things down. Well, this has
We
been
we
a
are.
great. It's really been a great chat here. With all
Oh,
this,
I hope so.
we had a lot
I
to
hope that
catch up
makes
on,
sense.
and I'm pretty sure we made sense to most
I
people.
hope so. That's a lot. I mean, we'll continue to talk about this and continue to work through this book, but it's really getting down to distilling things for me in such a way that it does go beyond words. It's experiencing a state of being. The only thing I would say is that my prayer lately has been for people need this help. Like, being given the gift of having this state and experiences this state and dream and having like this revelation, I see it's too hard. It's too hard to like make the leap over unless you experience this as a knowing. Um, so like my prayer now, really, I've been putting in daily, is for others to be given in whatever way this gift as well, as like a real experience of understanding. And even though it's just temporary, the inspiration and level of observation that it opens up, and the love that it opens up within you, like, we really need this help, because it's really hard when you're in that without having the feeling, you know
Hmm.
I don't. And I think Christ really understood that. I think he really understood how hard it is when you are just lost in it, and it's very real, and your pain is very real, your suffering is very real, your stories are very, very real. We need this help to sh- to have an experience, even just for a brief moment, of this other state of being, because it's too far. Like, as a concept, we can read it, we can read the words, but we can't take it into ourselves in such a deep way without having even a bit of this experience sort of inspired or dropped into our lives. We really need this help because otherwise they're just concepts. They're just ideas. They're just more words. They're just more stories about stuff, and it doesn't hit you the same way. Because I read the same book. I read the same material, like a year or two ago or whatever. It's like, yeah, cool, forgiveness. Yeah. But it's not the same way. Now that I've had these experiences and dreams, it, totally different thing. And I pray that we all need, here I go, talk about need and consumption. But we do need that help, to feel that real truth so we can start to emit it into this reality and flood it, right? But I think that what is this energy is coming in to do, and what this whole shift is actually about.
Is
We
realizing
just
we
made,
are that, actually, right?
yeah, we are the shift. We are the
We
shift in
are the love
action.
and the light, and everything that we're looking outwardly for is within us, and we can shine that out, like what you're saying.
Already
It's like,
exists
yeah, it's right
as
there.
truth.
It's just
Yeah,
realizing it.
takes work.
Yeah. And you don't
Yeah.
even need anything. That's the whole trick of the whole thing. It's
I
like,
know, like I say that it takes work, and it's like, but like it is such a contradiction, and there is a lot of catch 22s, and that's why I say like we need to experience this knowing, um, to help pull us out of perception and experience this truth. So that's what I pray for everybody. So this has made me very vulnerable. I'll tell you, I'm easily emotional now because I don't have the same defenses, right? I'm not guarding my love and my energy field so much. So the expression of that is much more open. So I also have been experiencing much more vulnerability, not in a fearful way. It's just a natural allowance of emotion, of deep emotion. It's like because we can guard ourselves against that, you know,
just
try to
like in your
rein it
dream,
in.
there really
Hmm.
was no need to ever be guarded in your dream. And it
Right.
was
You just got
like
to let it
once the
flow.
love finally just
Once it
overrode
starts to flow,
the fear of the left brain. And it's like the left brain, right? It all comes back to this that chatterbox of our left brain telling
yeah,
us, we're gonna get our butt kicked, or something's gonna go wrong, or what do you think you're doing? What's the
yeah,
plan here? It doesn't like, all it has is like memories of, it can't think outside the box, basically.
no,
And I'm
it's just
learning
always got more
even,
stories.
yeah, exactly. And I'm
Yeah,
learning about how we'll even let our left brain drive our imagination, which is, we'll think of some horrible scenario, and then we'll start projecting it into our imagination. Well, imagine if this
yeah.
happened, and imagine if this happened. And we're like, that's the worst part of the whole using of our imagination in that way.
Well, that's it. That's one of the things that was brought up. Like it's like fantasy and the idea of fantasy. And again, you're going into fantasy to fulfill a need that you feel that you don't already have, and or even having like fantasy arguments or conversations with people in your head. Like, this process, thank God I'm not working. I don't have a job because
All
um
the conversations you'd have over and over again. I should have said
everything.
this, and I should have said that.
No, you can't do that. Like
Yeah.
I have to recognize like when that left
Hmm.
brain starts doing that.
Yeah.
La, 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 la.
And you actually
It's
get your
like,
body like worked up in emotion. We talked about that before. It
yeah,
takes 90 seconds if you could just stop dwelling on whatever it was, the person that cut you off in traffic or whatever. But, it's either we'll think about it again, like, oh, what was I mad about again? When you start feeling fine, you're like, oh, yeah, that's what I was mad about.
right, right.
Another 90 seconds, you got to wait before it can clear out of your system. So,
Yeah. When I see, and that's the thing, it's like what's happening for me now is like that sort of where you go to start to sell, well, but they did this. It's like immediately. I'm like, "Ooh, what did they do?" You know, it's like the other higher voice comes in, is like, yeah, and like, tell me all about it, like not buying it. Yeah. You sit down, calm down, you and your story about whatever, you know. So it's like calling me to be account, not in a bad way, but like in every aspect of my own animation within my body, of my, fantasy or imagination thoughts, to, my thoughts on how to deal with things or whatever. So, yeah, that's
Well,
where
Dana
I'm
says,
at.
I literally chopped wood and carried water all winter.
And I'll do it any day.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
awesome.
happy. I'm so happy to be um out here simplifying, like just keeping it simple.
Yeah, to have the wood to chop
Provide.
and the water to carry, right?
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for being here today and sharing your heart with us, Michelle.
Well, I sure did. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Lots of love lighting
Bwah!
room. Lots of love
'Cause
lighting
here I
room to you
am.
guys. We'll see
Yeah.
you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.